Hi everyone, and welcome to Drinking with Dana. Coming live to you from my office this week. So that I'll get into that a little bit in just a minute. But first, for everyone out there, if you could let me know how I'm looking and sounding. Can you hear me okay? I'm not sure if the camera is as good on my desktop as it is on my old tablet, but hopefully you can hear me and everything else is good. So, why am I in the office this week? Well, last week my tablet died, and it was actually on election night. I was setting it up so that I could watch the election returns while chatting with folks and playing video games, and it just wouldn't turn on. And I had a problem with it where I had to go out and buy a new charger the week before, and that worked for like a day or two. And then I took it in, uh, and it turns out the motherboard was just fried. So unfortunately, I had to go out and buy a new tablet, which arrived about an hour before the show started. So I was actually still fiddling with even setting up Windows when I started. Also, thank you, Ogre Marco, who says I look lovely and sound like Dana. I dispute the first, but appreciate the sentiment. It's mildly background noisy, but fine. Okay, I turned up the microphone a bit. Let me adjust that just slightly here, if I can. Let's see. To be honest, I don't remember entirely how I did it, so this may take a little bit. Anyway, so yes, so I got that. I got that sorted more or less. But so next week we should be back in the kitchen, or 2 weeks from now we should be back in the kitchen, and back to more or less normal. It should be just at, if I've done my math right, it'll be the week after Thanksgiving, which I'm going to get into in just a minute. But actually, let me concentrate for a second and see if I can get the microphone sounding better. Device properties. Let's turn that down. All right. Does that sound better? Also, hello to it's Winter Nicole. Glad to see you here. Also, thank you again, Ogre, for showing up. Always glad to see you. All right. So, yes. So, hopefully we'll get the new tablet working. Be back in the kitchen, and what else is going on these days? So, as I mentioned in the ad, this is going to be a sort of truncated show. Hi, Ogre says Mickey is with me. So, hi, Mickey. Good to see you, virtually, sort of, in chat. So, there's been a lot going on in my personal life. Some of it I can talk about. Some of it is not my story really to tell. But a few things happened recently which I figured I'd share with you just so you know kind of what's going on. The big thing that happened was on the 26th, the day before our 20th wedding anniversary, I found out that a gender affirming surgery that I've been trying to get all year, well, let me put it this way. I've gone through now 5 surgeons, all of whom at one point said they could do the surgery, and then with varying degrees of times after that, then told me they couldn't, for one reason or another. This surgeon, I had waited 5 months for an appointment, and then the night before that appointment, I got a message basically saying they couldn't do it. When I showed up to the appointment to find out why, turns out they just don't do that surgery on trans women because they don't like the way the results look. So that kind of devastated me because I've had a lot of not great stuff going on in my life recently, and I'd been pinning a lot of hopes on this. And so I was kind of wiped out for about a week or two after that, just really messed up. So that's I've gotten over that. I've got a new surgeon. I'm gonna have to travel to down to California to get this surgery now. But and when I know when that is, I'll let you know so we can schedule things, or rather, so I can you'll know when I'm scheduling to not do the show for a bit. Um, so that all has been going on. There have been a lot of big draws and sort of bummers in my time lately. Um, and then the holidays are starting to come up now. As I mentioned before, Thanksgiving's next week, and I'm a housewife and I do a lot of cooking for my family events. So that's starting to uh, draw a lot for my time now. Winter Vespers is here. Hello, I'm glad you could make it. Um, Always good to see you. Uh, so yes, so Thanksgiving's coming up. Christmas holidays are coming up. I'm hoping to kind of work some of my holiday prep into the show. Maybe there's gonna be a day where I just turn on the camera and you can watch me make Christmas cookies all day. I don't know. Um, so with all of that going on, I probably would have skipped this show too, just like I skipped the last one. Um, there's certainly good reasons for it, but next, I believe it's Saturday, the 20th is coming up. I'm sorry, Sunday is Trans Day of Remembrance, and I wanted to do something for that. Um, I'm going to talk a little bit about Trans Day of Remembrance in a bit and sort of explain what it is and go over that. But it's one of the two big sort of trans, for lack of a better term, trans holidays in the year. Um, and so I wanted to do at least something for that. You might be asking why I'm not doing something special for Thanksgiving. Well, Thanksgiving's a little problematic these days, as you know, as more and more people discover more and more about what actually happened back then, and some of the myths and legends we were taught uh, are revealed to be just myths and legends. Um, so I'm probably not going to do anything for Thanksgiving this year. Maybe in the future I'll do something, but this is the holiday we're celebrating this year, and celebrating is probably not the right word for it. So, what is Trans Day of Remembrance? Trans Day of Remembrance, as I said, is one of the two big holidays on the trans calendar. The other being Transgender Day of Visibility, which happens in the spring, I believe. Um, so, Trans Day of Remembrance, and I'm going to be checking my notes here. I apologize. It was started in 1999, and it commemorates the basically all the deaths of trans folks that have happened over the past year and even before then, but especially those who have died in the past year. Um, and I apologize. I'm going to kind of ignore chat for just a minute as I go through this. I'm going to say hi to everyone and talk chats in a minute. Um, so basically, it sort of started in 1999 to commemorate the murder of a trans woman named Rita Hester, who lived in Alston, Massachusetts, and she was a much loved African American trans woman, apparently just full of life, the light of every party she went to, and I'm not going to talk about her murder. That this is not the kind of stream where we get into that, but it was bad and very, very transphobic. And what really galvanized the community was that um, the media coverage in all the newspapers, they dead named her, they referred to her as a cross-dressing man, they did all sorts of sort of, terrible things that way. And what was even worse is that 2 months before was the murder of Matthew Shepard. And we all remember all of the newspaper coverage. It was a national story. Uh, everyone had heard about it and was enraged by it. And by contrast, the death of this black trans woman was, no one had heard of it. No one, and what coverage there was awful. Um, so you can find details about what happened online. I'm not going into that, but I will say that the police were slow to respond, and that may be one of the reasons of her death. So basically, this contrast in coverage and reactions among the country really galvanized folks to start acting. One of the things that happened was on the anniversary of her murder on November 28th, Trans Day of Remembrance was started to commemorate the lives of all the lives lost for trans folks over the year, especially those of trans people of color. And now I said it was actually celebrated on the 20th, and that's because it was moved to not conflict with Thanksgiving. So, yes. Now, how it's traditionally observed is by reading a list of the names of all of those who've died over the past year. I'm not going to do that. It's not actually Trans Day of Remembrance today. There will be plenty of people doing that. After the show, I'm going to raid over to the Transverses, basically their Trans Day of Remembrance event, and I'm sure they'll be doing that. Other people will also be doing that. I did not feel it was required this year. Maybe in future I will. So that's what Trans Day of Remembrance is. It is essentially a day to the trans folks mourn our dead. Trans Day of Visibility at the beginning of the year in spring is to basically celebrate trans folks, to show that we're here, to be visible. But today is the day we mourn our dead. So, well, Sunday is the day we mourn our dead. And on that note, I will get to the chat. Paleker, thank you for showing up. First time chat. And he goes on to say, sorry, picked a rough time to pop in all enthusiastic. Don't worry about it. You're fine. I like the enthusiasm. One of the reasons why we're kind of, this is a Trans Day of Remembrance show, but this show is about family and friends and having a good time and being together. That's also part of the Trans Day of Remembrance, but it's also just part of this show. I believe it was Winter Vespers who said that this feels, normally it feels like I've invited you into the kitchen to hang out, and I've always kind of felt that that's what this show is about, is inviting people, the part of the party where not everyone's arrived yet, but I'm still busily fixing dinner as people show up, and people hang out in the kitchen and talk with me, and we make stuff. So I am so happy that you joined us, and don't worry at all about the enthusiasm. That's great. Going back a little bit, It's Winter Nicole said that Christmas baking can be fun. I remember my mom and gran doing lots of baking. I do a ton of baking at Christmas. It was always tradition in our family to make like 7 or 8 or even more types of cookies, and I can't break the habit. It's one of the big parts of Christmas for me. So I will try and do a stream of Christmas baking, and but we'll see what happens with that around the holidays. All right. So I did promise you that I was going to make a drink, and it is called the Affinity cocktail. Sort of. Let me tell you a bit about the drink I'm going to be making. Let me actually go to the drink. Here we go. So, in 1901, a bartender named Mr. Johnson, who was head bartender at the Rector's Bar at the Hotel New Netherlands in New York, invented a drink. And according to one newspaper article I read on it, published at the time, he, the person the people that he made it for, asked, "So what is this drink called?" And he's like, "Well, I'm gonna wait and see the effect it has on you before I name it." And so one of the people there had to leave early, after just one of these, and his friends, however, stayed and had a couple more. And when the person who left came back and said, "So, did you ever come up with a name for it?" And he said, "Yeah, I kind of watched your friends as they left, so I'm going to call it the Sidewalk cocktail, because they were pretty much face down on it by the few steps out of the bar." But that's actually, and I hate to say it, but that's the cocktail's dead name. Later on, it became known as the Affinity cocktail. And what happened, as far as I can tell, is a bunch of different bars started making the Affinity cocktail, and they did it slightly different. They either used, as you can see from the recipe up there, it uses 2 different kinds of vermouth and scotch as its main ingredients. So they fiddled around with the ratios there. Other people added like a bar spoon of powdered sugar to it. Other people added, a cherry or a lemon twist or different kinds of garnishes, and it all changed around a bit. And when all was said and done, it kind of ended up back to where the Sidewalk cocktail was, just with a new name. So that's what I'm going to be doing. Oh, also some versions of it had bitters in it of various different kinds: Angostura, orange, cardamom, a few different things like that. I'm not using bitters in this version, so just because the original one didn't, I figured we'd get, and yes, I know it's would be more trans to do the final version, but this is kind of also the final version. So some things don't really change when you transition, I guess. I say that as someone who still tries to bring all of the groceries back from the car in one go. Anyway, oh, and so I got all of this history, or at least most of this history for this drink, from a website called barvadimecum.edu, and I'm going to type that in the chat. Actually, I'm going to spell it out for the YouTube folks. It's bar-bademecum.edu. And it is a fantastic website. I just discovered it actually when doing research for this cocktail. It's a couple of gents, I think in Germany, who really do deep dives on some of the cocktail history, make their own recipes, even get into deep dives on various kinds of cocktail ingredients. So like they had a 5-part series on just tonic water. They did another couple, a 2-part series on orange curacao. So very interesting website. The other thing I want to note on this is that it says to use, I use 1 ounce of sweet vermouth and 1 ounce of blanc vermouth. Now, most folks, when they think of vermouth, they think there's 2 types of vermouth. There's sweet, which I believe is the Italian type of vermouth. That's usually the red one. It's used in Manhattans, a bunch of other things. And then they think dry vermouth, which is also known as French vermouth, used in martinis and other things like that. And those are the two most common. There's also Blanc vermouth, which is what we're going to be using today. And it is, I believe, and I'll explain why I say I believe, but it's a more sweet, clear vermouth. So sort of halfway between the the dry and the sweet. I honestly, so I have to admit, I've never actually had it before, because when I made my test drink for this, I used dry vermouth, because that's what I thought it was calling for. And then, honestly, last night I was watching How to Drink's most recent video on various rum drinks, and he goes into Blanc vermouth, and I was like, wait a minute, did the recipe call for that? Did I screw that up? And I went back and checked, and sure enough, I had screwed that up. So I actually, the test version I made of this was good. It was really good. I'm expecting this to be even better because it's what it's actually supposed to be. But this is one of the rare ones that I have not actually tried it before doing the show. So we're going to discover it together. Ember Leo waves and says she's only here for a bit but wants to drop in. And hi and thank you. Good to see you. I'm always happy to have folks just drop in and out if they want. No pressure. All right. So let's see. I believe that's all I have for this. So let's actually try and make this at my desk here. So I'm gonna put my keyboard tray away. Actually, I am going to put this on a different screen for a minute. I just realized I forgot to grab ice. So I will be back in just a moment. Alright, sorry about that. I knew I was going to do that too. So, let's start off with, I've got my cocktail shaker here, and you're not gonna be able to see things as well. I'm sorry about that. I'll try and show everything on camera. Oh, and by the way, you can see my Bluha back in here for trans representation. I was gonna try and have a candle burning for Trans Day of Remembrance, but there was no place to put it where you'd be able to see it. So, we're pouring. Don't want to do it over my keyboard there. Just do it over my lap. The dress can be washed. So, 1 ounce of the sweet vermouth. Also, I should take a moment to explain why I chose this drink for today. And the truth of the matter is, there aren't any really sort of canonical trans cocktails. If you go out during Pride, you'll find sort of trans-ish concoctions that are usually like big slushy drinks in the trans pride flag colors, and they don't, really usually taste that great, or, the whole point of them is they're fun and they get you drunk, and they put a trans name on them or something like that, and that's when they don't just do, queer names and things like that. So I think maybe in future years, maybe I'll try and invent a trans cocktail, see what we can do on that front. But for now, I couldn't really find anything. So, and because it's Trans Day of Remembrance, I wanted to do something that I wanted to do something a little more serious, I guess is the best way to put it. Like I say, for Pride, it's fun, fruity, over the top, enjoyable drinks. Well, I don't want to say enjoyable separately. That sounds wrong, but basically over top, fun party drinks. Um, that's not kind of what today is. This is more. This is more. You know, well, it's not sober, but it's more introspective and a little more less celebratory. Somber. That's the word I'm looking for. Thank you, Ember Leo. Somber is the word I'm looking for. And I think that's what this drink does. So we'll see. I think this is going to be this is a really nice drink that will that will fit that bill. All right, so this is the I'm using Dolan Vermouth Blanc. It's Vermouth de Chambray Blanc. So you'll see how that is. And there are, by the way, yeah, Ogre Marco says, I was just about to say that sounds like a challenge, invent a trans cocktail. I am definitely thinking about doing that. This was not the year for it, but next year or I'll probably for Day of Visibility I'll try and do something that's the fun version, and then as Ember Leo says, invent a serious trans cocktail for Trans Day of Remembrance next year. So this is the Vermouth Blanc, and it is clear. It is like water clear in here. And Ogre Marco says, I've never seen Blanc Vermouth. Yeah, I hadn't either. I know there are different kinds of vermouth, especially sweet vermouth, because vermouth is essentially wine with some spices in it, if I remember correctly. It's sort of how sort of like an aperitif. Quick drink straight for us. Well, I get lipstick on my measurer here, but I'm the only one drinking this, so I think that's okay. All right. I say that because Ogre Marco says, take a quick taste straight for us. So. That's actually really nice. It tastes a little bit like a very, very light, sweet dessert wine, but it has almost more some baking spice notes to it. I think I taste a little clove in there. Yeah, I mean, almost more. It's almost got apple pie notes in it. So yeah, that is really interesting. And now I've had other vermouths. Actually, here, as long as I'm doing this, let me compare that to the sweet vermouth. And I'm just using Gallo sweet vermouth because that's what I bought when I think I went to the grocery store because I was out, and that's what they had. And I wanted a Manhattan that night. Gosh darn it. So, this is the... I apologize for the clinking sounds here. Yeah. Alright, so, sorry. I was processing that and also processing something Ember Leo said, which I will get to in a minute. Good to see you. She's heading out. So thank you very much for showing up and enjoy your night. So honestly, the sweet vermouth is drier, I think, almost than the Blanc. It's it's more tannic, as you would expect from a red, and it has different a different flavor profile. It still has some spices in it, but you don't taste them as clearly as you do with the Blanc vermouth. So interesting. Um, yeah. Huh. Honestly, I don't think I've ever had just straight vermouth before. So, and that might also be because the Dolan is a better quality vermouth, so you can taste it. And also, it is a fresh bottle. I just opened it up, whereas the sweet vermouth I've had for a while. So, Ember Leo said, and I'm going to butcher the pronunciation here, so I apologize. In memoriam eroum qui ad mortem transurient. And all of the folks who speak Latin in the audience can correct me in the comments and chat. But and then she says, "And there's my Ashley, so off I go to date night." Again, I hope you have a great time on your date, and I appreciate your sentiment. I actually know Ember IRL. We were roommates for a while, and so I also know that that what she said is accurate, appropriate, and with good meaning. All right, so I'm about to bring out the scotch we use for this drink, and I'm begging you not to judge me for this. What we are using is Johnny Walker Black Label 12-year-old Scotch. And I say not to judge because I have this gigantic bottle of it. There's a reason for that. I am not actually a Scotch drinker. I generally don't like smoky cocktails, smoky drinks. And a friend of mine, a very good friend of mine, traveled overseas, and apparently this is only found in duty-free shops. So she knew that, and I think I had mentioned that I didn't have any scotch at one of our parties, and so she brought this back for me. Now, the reason why there's so much gone is not because I've drunk that much, but because I poured a bottle of it to my dad, who I know does like scotch. So, but this is, as far as I can tell, very good scotch. So that's what we're going to use for this. And again, here, pour it. And there it goes. All right, so that's 1 ounce of scotch. And I can tell you from experience, it's basically whiskey and campfire, and Ogre Marco says, I prefer a blend like that for Scotch tails. I've used it for a few cocktails over the years, and I've always found it great. It is, from what I've read, I absolutely agree with you. Again, I know a lot of people like a lot of smoke in their drinks. It's just not, not my thing. But sometimes in a drink like this, it can be really nice. So, all right. So, those are our 3 ingredients. Equal parts, the sweet vermouth, Blanc vermouth, and scotch. And I'm going to add some of that ice I went and got. And put it in my shaker. I've had this ice bucket for years and almost never used it, so I'm glad I had it. Alright, and this is a stirred drink. So I put the ice in here, stir it around, and there are various different philosophies for a stirred drink on how long you do this. I'm on record as saying I do it until you see a good amount of frost or dew on the outside of the shaker. And because you want it really chilled down, but you don't want it too diluted. I think that's pretty good. I don't know if you can see that difference there. And I'm just going to use the top of this to strain it because that's how I do. And I'm using a coupe, just the same ones I always use. And comes out. And because it's stirred, you get a nice, clear drink. And so I don't have a second camera, but hopefully you can see that. There is one last step though, and that is the orange twist. So what I'm gonna do, or sorry, not orange, lemon twist. And I forgot to take the label off this. I can't remember where I was saying it. I don't think I've said it on this channel before, but the labels on there are actually edible. They have to be because of the FDA says that if someone accidentally eats one of those, it can't cause any problems. So, Ogre Marco says, Chivas 12 is my bottle of choice for a Rob Roy. That sounds lovely. Again, not a big Rob Roy drinker, but I should probably... Actually, I'm not sure if I've ever actually had a Rob Roy. I think I saw that it called for scotch and decided not. So, alright, so, well, you're not really going to be able to see this, I apologize, but basically just going to, pinch it, squeeze it this way to get the lemon oils, which are all in the skin, into the glass. And this is a juicy one. So, and then once you've squeezed it like this, just, sort of squeeze it in half, just put it aside. You're not going to put it in the drink. You could if you wanted, but so the original recipe called for it to be sprinkled with lemon zest, and I went kind of back and forth on what that actually meant. Part of me is like, well, I should grate some lemon zest and sprinkle it over the top, and that might be interesting. But I kind of figure what they actually meant is to spritz it with the oils from the lemon peel. So, anyway, does not change the look of it, but if you look actually in the light, you're not going to be able to see this on camera, but you can actually see those oils floating on top. It doesn't really change the look, but just kind of, if you're looking carefully, you can kind of see them. So, how does it taste? Very nice. Okay. Something I'd forgotten from last time I had this. So, let me take another sip and I'll go through the flavor profile. So the first thing you taste is actually sweetness. A lot of that fruity sweetness especially from the Blanc vermouth, but also from the sweet vermouth. It is sweet and fruity and very, like I say, almost dessert wine-ish. And then that just kind of, over a few seconds, evolves into that smoke flavor. It's like, you're in a room and then just smoke drifts across it. That's kind of how the flavor evolves in this drink. Let's see. Now you definitely get the lemon oils on the nose. When you smell it, you get that lemon fragrance. And there is some of that in the flavor as well. Last time I did this, I actually used I don't know if I used a bigger piece of lemon peel or if it was just more of it, but it was almost a little overwhelming. This time it perfectly matches that the sweetness of the vermouth, gives it a nice citrus character up front. It is, I would also, as serious and interesting and adult, as somber as this, as I was going for, it is all those things, but there's also a lightness to it. It is not a really heavy drink, which is strange to say for three things, a drink that made from three alcohols. Now the Scotch is 80 proof. The vermouth is, see if it says here. It's on the back here. So the Blanc is 16% alcohol, and which is 32 proof, but 16% alcohol. The sweet vermouth is got to be labeled on here somewhere. Also 16%. So 16%, 16%, and 40%. Someone out there can do the math if they'd like, but it's not a mild, light drink in terms of alcohol, but by taste, it is delicious and tastes light. That smoke that comes over the end is, it adds a deep note to it, though. I'm really enjoying this, actually. And I shouldn't sound surprised because I did choose it for the show. I'm just enjoying it a lot more with the Blanc vermouth in there than I did with the dry. The dry, it needed more sweetness to it, and I was like, well, that's just kind of how Scotch is, and it was still good enough. It was still a good drink. With the Blanc vermouth in there, it's really, really nice. I will be making more of these in the future. So that's just about it for tonight's show. I apologize that it's a short one tonight. So getting back to the theme of the evening of Trans Day of Remembrance, there's a toast I and my friends say when we get together at game conventions and all that. It's nerdy, I'm not going to deny that, but we're giant nerds, and it seems appropriate here. So, if you'll grab a glass and join me in a toast, to absent friends. Thank you all for joining me this evening. I'm going to rate us over to the Transverse. And they're doing their Trans Day of Remembrance event as well tonight. I apologize for timing. I know a lot of people want to do both of these. So let me see if I can do that. Okay. So here we go. Thank you all for joining me. I will see you soon. Oh, I am told by Winter Vespers that they may be canceled tonight. So, well, if let me actually check. I have the Raid Now button up, but let's see what's going on. Oh, all right. Bye, Ogre. Twitch is coming up, and they are not actually. Yeah, they are not there. So
and thank you all for the follows. Welcome in again. My name is Crab.
I will not be rating to them. There are some DJs that I follow that I could raid to, but I don't think that's really appropriate tonight. So, apparently, according to Winter Vespers, they were having some technical difficulties. So it looks like, they may reschedule. If you know the Transverse and are on the Transverse server, which I highly recommend both for trans folks and allies, anyone who's ever questioned their gender or probably should question their gender can go there. Or if you just want to learn how to be a better ally, they are a great Discord server. You can, I believe they're if you do a web search for the Transverse, they will come up, and you can get all their links from there. All right. Well, thank you all. I appreciate you being here. Stay safe. Uh, give those you love an extra big hug tonight. And thank you all for still being here. Cheers.